Aku nonton cek dulu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch, and welcome back to the afternoon session of the TIJ IGLP workshop. Unfortunately, Dr.
Imprisonment of both male and female prisoners. Today, her presentation will be about the ways to build an inclusive society through enhancing lives behind bars. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Chontit to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the MC mentioned, I am one of the emerging leaders. So I am one of you. And you know, the previous session we talked about how to make a good policy presentations and how to do a problem analysis. And I feel like I'm the first person to be on trial. You know, I have to deliver to what our facilitator has educated us in the morning. So. As mentioned, I am with the TIJ and I work in the field of prison. During my time at the TIJ, my work has been focused a lot on research in prison. And me personally, I feel like issues about prison has not been discussed enough in the broader area. It's strictly taught in the criminal justice system and among criminal justice agencies. So for me, it's always a privilege to listen to personal stories of prisoners and those behind bars, because I feel that this is the best place to learn, because I myself also come from a law background, and I feel that in prison you learn so much outside of the law books. You know, prisoners teach you a lot about this subculture that happened in this area, and they also teach you law as well. Apparently they know more about drug law and sentencing policy than me sometimes. So I would like to begin by asking you, how many of you have been inside prison? Obviously not an offender or prisoner, not so many. And same, when I talk about issues about prison to my friends and families, they don't really understand, or they don't really care why we need to talk about this issue. And for me, this issue is particularly important because it has been under discussion, and people in the business sector do not talk about it often enough. But people in prison around the world is not insignificant in numbers. So I will start with some statistics. All over the world, there are 10.3 million people inside prison, and that is quite a lot. So this statistic comes from World Prison Brief, which are collecting data from 223 jurisdictions around the world. And of this number, women account for about 7% or 700 persons. What we have seen over time is that from year 2000 to year 2015, there has been an increase in world prison population by 20%, and that is from 8 million to 10 million. And this is slightly higher than the growth in the general prison, the growth in the general population, which is only 18. And all the continents, almost all continents, you can see the percentage has increased in terms of prison population In Asia, is about 29% increase over the period of 15 years. And Europe, as you can see, is the only continent that prison populations has declined by 21%. And their general populations also increased by only 3%, much lower than the general average. But within this large number of prisons behind bars, there are some vulnerable groups. And you have elderly prisoners and prisoners with disabilities, LGBT prisoners. So prisoners themselves are not homogeneous groups. For me, I work with the TIJ, and we highly focus on the treatment of women's prisoners. And the reason that we focus a lot on female prisoners is because women's not increase in terms of number by 50%, as compared to 20% of the total increase in the prison population. So that is significant. And to explain this phenomenon, so it's widely noticed by feminist criminologists around the world that gender inequality has shaped women's pathway to prison. And this includes, for example, limited access to education, employment, or history of victimization. And criminal justice policy, which is sometimes has disproportionately affect women. And as mentioned by my American dear friends, Dr. Barbara Owen, she always tells me, she's my mentor. The way she framed it is that if gender doesn't matter, the proportions of men and women would be the same. But in reality, women, as I mentioned, only account for 7% of the whole prison population globally. And in realities, women and men in prison different in many ways, particularly in terms of the type of offense that they are committed. In the US, the majorities of women are in prison for properties and drug crime, and around 1/3 of women in prison are convicted of violence as compared to over half of male prisoners. So this gender offense patterns also true in other contexts. So take Thailand, for example. As of now, we have over 350,000 prisoners, and we are ranked 6th in the world. And that is high compared to a country which has only 60 million people. We have over 300,000 people behind bars. And the majority of prisoners are in prison for drug-related offense. And for women, they are in prison for drugs-related crime, and that applies to 80% of them. And this is quite a lot compared to other regions. So you can see that the reason that leads someone to prison is due to the criminal justice policy, that initially was aimed to target the big drug dealer, drug trafficker who has caused so much damage, but end up punishing women who only a small-time drug dealer or drug user who have too much drug in their possession, and that's lead women into prison. And so this is why internationally somebody has argued that the war on drug that was introduced in many countries, including Thailand as well, has therefore become a war on women, because women have been disproportionately affected by this policy. And to look at the pathway to prison, my research that I did in partnership with a university in Australia, Griffith University, I had a chance to do an empirical study interviewing women and men in different prisons in the ASEAN region. And we try to understand what leads people into prison, trying to understand the reasoning and the turning point in someone's life. And what we use is the interview. So we use the whole life approach interview, listening to their story from their childhood, adulthood, their relationship with peers and family, trying to understand what's gone wrong in their life. And one thing that I and my research partner found is that the common experience between male and female prisoners that they have is this childhood adversity. Most of the people that I talk to have a really bad experience as a child. And that leads us to think that, before they are prisoners, they were once a child. And that also gives us an idea and the question that should be asked, what has gone wrong in their life over the periods as they're growing up. So for my research, I found that the adverse childhood experience, such as growing in the family with domestic violence or witnessing violence in the family or death of caregiver or even parental separation, has caused this traumatic experience and can shape the child behavior and feeling as they grow up. And more importantly, this adverse childhood experience has played an important role as a push factor, that lead a child to a deviant behavior and to ultimately lead them to a journey which can end up in the criminal justice system. And we also found that deviant peer groups also has an important as a pull factor that pull young people away from their family and lead them to use of drug, nightlife, and all sorts of deviant behavior. However, and into adulthood, some people have experienced a limited access to a lot of services, particularly limited education and poverty. And that means that leave them with a limit options in terms of incomes and jobs opportunities. And that's why economic motivation and financial needs to support their family is another important factors, particularly in the case of drug offense and property crime. So particularly for women, because I speak a lot about women because I mainly work around the treatment of women prisoners, the pathway that lead women into prison, one is quite different from men, is the pathway that shaped by domestic violence. As you might have heard about cases where women kill their husband or the women commit homicide or murder. In these cases, we found that it's really rare for women to commit a violent crime. But when women commit a violent crime, is usually related to their experience as victims of domestic violence. Some of you might be familiar with the term of battle women syndrome. Women who have to endure a lot of abuse by their intimate partner. One day they stand up and protect themselves and end up hurting or killing their husband. So I'm trying to summarize some of the pathway that we found during the research. Shift away from the qualitative study to quantitative study and outside the context of Thailand. In the UK, the Social Exclusion Unit of the UK Cabinet Office has done a study in 2002 and showed that prisoners are 13 times more likely to have been in care as a child. They're also 13 times more likely to have been unemployed. And there are 2.5 times more likely to have a family member convicted of a criminal offense. So this kind of information and statistics is important and it helps us understand the pictures and profile of those who are in detention. And it's important for us also to understand, their needs in order to come up with a policy that can better address their social and economic needs. In the international standards and norms, talk about how this prisoner should be treated. And one of the most important international standards and norm is the UN Standards Minimum Rules on the Treatment of Prisoners, or known as the Nelson Mandara Rules. It suggests that once the prisoners are admitted to prison, there should be a mechanism that establish in prisoner the will to lead law-abiding and self-supporting life after release. So that's kind of identify the roles of prison. That they should encourage prisoners to have a self-respect, develop sense of responsibilities. But in the natures of prison, that reality could be really difficult to come true. This is because the condition where many prisoners are required to live certainly do not encourage them to have self-respect or sense of responsibilities. The prison overcrowding, limited space to move around. They do not have the freedom to think or believe, so that makes it difficult for someone to have a self-respect. So some of you who have been a chance to visit a prison might already know that the prison might not be a happiest place on earth. But, and also, when combined with overcrowding and under-resources, it can dramatically limit, the ability of the prison to fulfill the basic need of a person. Data from the WHO describe describe the situation within the prison, and it showed that from the data collection over 20 years in the European region, it showed that 40% of prisoners suffer from a mental health problem. 1/3 of young women in prison suffer from depression. TB rate in prison is much higher than in the general population, and that is by 84 times. And we also know that prisoners who smoke inside prison is much higher than the general population. So that leads to other diseases that come with it. And surprisingly, which not so surprising, prisoners are 7 times more likely to commit suicide because of the environment and the loss of freedoms, being isolated. It really do impact someone's mental health, and particularly for a young person, they are 18 times more likely to commit suicide compared to those in the community. So these are some statistics that collected by the WHO, but I would like also to share with you some of the story that I heard from a prisoner that I had a chance to talk to. So during my study on the pathway to prison and prisoner experience as trying to cope with the life in prison, I had a chance to interview with one male inmate. And I asked him, one of the questions is that, what is the most important thing for you as a prisoner? He said, for me and for other people incarcerated as well, the 3 important things or the 3 precious things are including 3 S's. The first S is status. He explained that every convicted prisoner will be classified into different classes. So in Thailand, we divide them into 6 classes of status. So based on their offense, behavior, risk, length of sentence. And the 6 status are excellent, very good, good, medium, bad, and very bad. So this kind of like grading system, to tell which group that you belong to. And for example, if you are a person who re-offend, you had your previous crime, you will be at the bad or medium or very bad. So it's kind of defined who you are and the behavior and the potential that you could have. So the higher status for him means that he can get a better privilege. For example, with a very good class prisoner, you can have access to work, paid work, for example. You earn much higher than other work inside the prison. You can also have access to a sentence reduction on a certain number of days per month, for example. So this classification system we use in prison as a way to give prisoner incentive, to do good things, to become, to use their potential and to try to learn and to do good and not break the rules and regulation. But in another way, it reflects the nature of prison, that people are monitored and supervised closely all the time. Every single move you make, every rule and regulation that you need to follow. So it creates that strict regime and routine that someone needs to follow, and in a way that it also creates incentive. So the second S that he mentioned is safety. So the term safety can be interpreted in many forms. So for him, health safety is one of them. So infectious disease are important problem in prison because it's a closed environment. And because of the factor, for example, overcrowding, limited access to water, and delay in diagnosis can contribute to higher transmissions rate inside prison. So some of the disease that you don't find in the outside world, you can find it in prison because of the prison condition. So this is why it is important to stay healthy at all times. And this is why international standards recommend that every prison should have a basic healthcare services and medical staff available. But in reality, what we know is that prison in most parts of the world are under-resources. And this particular area, which is the medical care, is the most critical part and always under resources. In Thailand, a nurse had to work all day and night, and the ratio between the medical staff to a prisoner could be as high as 1 to 500. And he goes on and tell me about safety issue that he worry about. He said that safety can also interpret as a safety to life, to his physical health, meaning that safety means keeping away from troubles and try not to have a conflict with other inmates in order to avoid being victims of physical and sexual violence in prison. So some come up with their own mechanism. Some join groups or informal gang inside prison in order to gain protection and in order to avoid exploitation by others. So he then conclude and say that for whatever forms of safety can be, the bottom line is that you just need to keep yourself healthy and stay alive. And the last S, and the most important, interesting one for me, is spoon. He says spoon is one of the precious things for him in prison. And that he explained that, as prisoner, you're not allowed to process material items, because of the security issue. You're only allowed to have in your locker a few uniforms and limited sanitary items, and also some books that you borrow from the library. And Thai people, as you know, we eat with fork and spoon. But since fork is a sharp item and it can be seen as a weapon, so prisoner only allowed to have in their possession one spoon, and it has to be a personal spoon. So that's he told me that the spoon can cause a conflict and sometimes can turn into a fight over amongst prisoners. And when I listen to this story, I feel that this is such a small thing, and for us who live outside the prison, this can be insignificant because you would never fight for a spoon with your colleagues, right? But when I heard this story, it's not the spoon issue that struck me, but it is the fact that the prison environment, this suppressing regime that turn the characters of a person, the value of the person around, and it's not necessary to a positive way. Interesting studies that done by the Institute of Criminology of Cambridge University found that a long-term imprisonment can change people to the core. And before we used to believe that people's personalities, would be largely fixed as an adult. But recent study has found that in reality, despite relative stability in our habit of thoughts, behavior, and emotion do change in response to the different roles that we are adopt and as we go through life. So key features of prison environment that can lead to personality change can be chronic loss of free choice, lack of privacy, because you have no privacy. There is no, even the toilet is still open. There is also daily stigma and frequent fear for your safety, and also emotional flatness, because you have to hide your emotion all the time, because if you express your vulnerabilities, you might be exploited by other inmates. And the fact that prisoners have to follow the strict rules and regulation at all times. So in its nature, whether it's like it or not, prison conceals and suppresses inmate emotion and causing the inability for them to feel or trust in people. And even though these personalities change or adaptation may help the prisoner to survive that jail time, it might help them to stay safe while they are in prison. It is very counterproductive for their life after release. And a released prisoner can be less capable of living a lawful life if they cannot trust anyone, if they still feel that something really possessive of something that they have. It's hard for them to adjust. So this is why we have to shift to our effort, trying to use less of imprisonment, and the most important and effective way to reduce prison effect and stigmatization can simply be reduce the use of imprisonment. use it only when it's necessary. Alternative to imprisonment, for example, fine, community service, and electronic monitoring should be promoted and used in the wider scope. So, to discuss about this treatment in prison, the Mandara Rules, or the rules that I mentioned, the UN standard, which give guidelines on how prison should be operate. It suggests that the prison regime should seek to minimize any differences between prison life and life at liberty. So how can you make the life in prison, less confined? You give people in incarceration with the respect of their dignity, also provide them with meaningful and balanced activities once they are inside the prison. But despite all these government efforts trying to come up with initiative and program in terms of rehabilitation, reintegration, come up with education program, vocational training. But what we see as a result, the recidivism rate, particularly in Thailand, is still high. So what does it imply? Does it mean that the government failed? Or does it mean that we do not work on this on the right way? To discuss about the success of reintegration, maybe it requires to look beyond the scope of the international human rights standard, beyond the scope of the prison operation. Look at the broader framework of how can we engage other stakeholders, those who can play an important role in the society to come and join the effort. So obviously helping release a prisoner to return back to society is really worthy, ambitious, but it can be more successful if it can be linked to a wider aspiration to make community safer for everybody. So we can shift our focus on individuals' prison to a bigger scope as a community safety. So the recent movement has looked beyond the criminal justice system and into a wider community initiative. For instance, the approach of the justice reinvestment, the concept that began in the US in the 1990s, is based on the recognition that successful reintegrations depends on strong civil institutes, and it cannot be achieved by the criminal justice alone. So the underlying principles of the concept of the justice reinvestment focus on communities and localities rather than individual persons. So it suggests that some of the resources that we spend in locking up people maybe can be better used in the community outside. Maybe the money that we use to lock up people can be invested in building a safer society, having school, building a safe community that everyone can enjoy this benefit as a form to prevent crime, to prevent also reoffending. So this concept has been used and turned into practice in different forms of projects in the US, and this approach also spread to other countries like Australia, New Zealand, and in the UK. And whether or not we should adopt this approach, as a speaker in the morning mentioned, we cannot just directly adopt something from elsewhere and think this will be good and applicable in our context. Moving to the context of Thailand, in recent years, what we have seen is a positive trend towards community or social efforts to try to help prisoners with their reintegration back into society. The form of public and private partnership model or social partnership model has started to emerge, and we find that several positive movements where private sectors and social enterprise, civil society have now started to join their efforts and create public awareness and also provide job opportunity for those who released from prison. And in December last year, Thailand Institute of Justice, we organized the one big event, and we also initiated the what we call the Crafting Hope Awards, and with the purpose to express the appreciation and also to recognize the work that has been done by civil societies and a private sector that extended opportunity to hire former inmates and give them opportunity to start their new life. So this award was given to 3 organizations in Thailand, and I would like to show a short video that can summarize the work of one organization that we provide our award to.
ด้วยรางวัลนวัตกรรมแห่งชาติด้านสังคมดัดจัดสรีระสู่การจัดตั้งวิสาหกิจสุขภาพชุมชนบ้านกึ่งวิถีเธอชีโดยนายแพทย์ภูลชัยจิตตอนันตวิทยาอายุรแพทย์โรคหัวใจชีได้รับการรับรองเป็น Social Enterprise จากคณะกรรมการส่งเสริมกิจการเพื่อสังคมแห่งชาติบ้านกึ่งวิถีเธอบ้านกึ่งวิถีเธอชีเริ่มงานเมื่อปีพุทธศักราช 2556 บริการดัดจัดสรีระถึงที่ทำงานคลายความเหนื่อยล้าจากออฟฟิศซินโดรมชีสงวนอาชีพนี้เพื่อสอนให้กับคนได้โอกาสเท่านั้นอย่างเช่นอดีตผู้ต้องขังหญิงเยาวชนจากสถานพินิจชีขับเคลื่อนให้ดัดจัดสรีระขยายเข้าไปยังหน่วยงานต่างๆทั้งภาครัฐและเอกชนที่สนใจการเติบโตอย่างยั่งยืนขององค์กรถือเป็นการอบอุ้มผู้ที่เคยก้าวพลาดด้วยการสนับสนุนจากตลาดทุนตลาดแรงงานชียังเชื่อมงานบริการที่ดีนี้ไปยังนักท่องเที่ยวการประชุมสัมมนาสิทธิประกันสังคมเพื่อให้ทีมชีสนุกกับงานมีงานทำตลอดปีทีมชีได้รับความชื่นชมจากคนในสังคมมากมีรายได้มั่นคงดูแลตัวเองและครอบครัวได้ดีมีความภูมิใจกับการเป็นคนดีของสังคมทำให้ไม่หวนกลับไปสู่วังวนเดิม
ทุกครั้งที่หนูเดินก้าวขาเข้าไปในเรือนจำหนูเข้าใจความรู้สึกของคนที่ต้องการโอกาสแบบหนูแล้ววันนี้หนูได้มีโอกาสได้เดินเข้าไปเพื่อสอนวิชาอาชีพที่มันมีคุณค่าให้พวกเขามันเป็นความภูมิใจค่ะมันเป็นมากกว่าโอกาสแต่ณวันนี้จากนย.กลายเป็นครูพัฒน์ครอบครัวลูกสาวภูมิใจในตัวหนูมากๆค่ะ
ไปอยู่ที่นี่มา4 ปีแล้วได้รับโอกาสเยอะมากค่ะอีกสิ่งหนึ่งที่ปาภูมิใจก็คือได้มีโอกาสเข้าไปสอนเพื่อนที่อยู่ข้างในเรือนจำรวมทั้งน้องๆนักเรียนอยู่ที่ราชประชานุเคราะห์ค่ะซึ่งเป็นสิ่งที่ภูมิใจมากก็อยากให้เขาได้รับโอกาสอย่างที่เราได้รับค่ะ
ต้อนรับเราโดยที่ไม่มีข้อแม้ทุกอย่างแล้วมีอยู่วันหนึ่งได้เข้าไปสอนในเรือนจำจะมีนักโทษ50 คนยกมือไหว้เราเป็นความภูมิใจมากค่ะและทุกวันนี้ภูมิใจมากที่สุดคือเราสามารถบอกกับลูกได้ว่าแม่มีงานทำแล้วนะเป็นโอกาสที่คิดว่าคงดีที่สุดในชีวิตสำหรับคน40 กว่าที่จะเริ่มค่ะ
เราพูดเสมอว่าเราอยากเดินตามที่พ่อสอนสานต่อที่พ่อทำการให้โอกาสคือสิ่งที่พ่อสอนพวกเรามาโดยตลอดนี่คือสิ่งที่พ่อสอนครับช่วยกันทำช่วยกันเดินหน้าแล้วการคืนคนดีสู่สังคมการลดคนกระทำผิดการลดปัญหายาเสพติดปัญหาทุกอย่างนี้มันอยู่รอบตัวเราไม่ช่วยกันแก้ไขแล้วใครจะทำครับ
So that is one of the award winner this year, and for us is a good positive sign that this strong collaboration between the government and the non-traditional criminal justice agency, like civil societies, has joined hands, and this is a step closer to bridging the gap between the prison and communities. So this positive change also means that the government will have to work less in silo and try to work in more, create more partnership with other agencies. And as mentioned in the video, the prisoners are the ones who benefit from this the most, and it create the values in themselves. They feel that they are part of communities. They are doing something good in return. The fact that they are now upgraded their status, from a prisoner to someone who can do something good to the society is really meaningful. And also the study suggests that employment following release is one of the most important factors that can prevent recidivism, and also together with strong family ties and support. But it's still a problem that stigma that attached with being a former prisoner mean that it's not
easy for everyone, who come out of prison and can find a job easily. We still have the criminal background check and preventing people from entering, even though the government work, they cannot apply. So this kind of stigma is really problematic and it's caused a lot of difficulty for those released from prison. Another initiative that Thailand Institute of Justice, together with participants from the Rule of Law and Development Program in 2018, did together is that we identify, in our own capacity, a group of public and private sectors and academia. We sit together and see what can we contribute to this, solving this problem. It's a big problem where the government itself cannot fix, but we are just a group of 10, 20 people. What can we do? So we come up with an idea that we have networks, and our network have really limited knowledge about what's going on in prison and the situation about people after release. So we think media campaign would be one of the important tool and powerful tools that can, convey the message to employers, business owners, and therefore we come up with another clip video, which capture the real situation. The video that I'm about to show you now is basically filmed in the closed environment. We inviting business owners to come and express their feeling, and you can see from the video that this is it is so spontaneous, and it's a social experiment, and which we can we hope to be able to use it to grasp the attention of the business owner inside Thailand.
หน้าอย่างนี้ภูมิฐานอย่างนี้พี่ฟันธงว่าพวกตระกูลพวกการพนันพวกเงินละกันต่ำๆก็ต้องมีหลักล้านอะ10 ล้าน100 ล้านอย่างเงี้ยแต่ดูแล้วน่าจะเป็นอารมณ์แบบข้ามีเงินแล้วข้าจะมีทุกอย่างอะ
เป็นยักยอกทรัพย์ภายในองค์กรงบประมาณอาจจะเป็นหลัก100 ล้านหรืออะไรอย่างเงี้ยอยากได้เงินมากกว่าเดิมเพราะว่าเงินเดือนอาจจะไม่พอใช้คิดว่าเขาได้ยินป่ะไม่รู้เขาโกรธแล้ว เขาไม่ได้ยินใช่ไหม
น่าจะเป็นคนขายยามากกว่าเสพยาเหมือนเป็นตัวรองมาจากเอเย่นเหมือนหาเงินใช้ไปวันๆหาความสนุกไปวัน
สำหรับพี่อ่ะตอนนี้พี่ไม่นะเพราะคำว่าฟอกเงินสำหรับพี่ค่อนข้างน่ากลัวนะ
แล้วเรารู้ได้ไงว่าเขาจะดีไม่ดีแต่ว่าถ้าเนี่ยพี่รู้คนนี้เขามีคดีพี่ก็ต้องเลือกคนที่ไม่มีคดี
ถ้าเลือกได้ก็ยังไม่เอาดีกว่าค่ะ
ทำอะไรอะคะทำไมถึงเข้าไปอยู่ข้างในนั้น
ที่ผมก่อคดีก็จะเป็นคดีกันโชคทรัพย์นะครับกับผิดต่อเสรีภาพนะครับ
คดีอะไรอะคะขอโทษที
พรบยาค่ะ
ยาเสพติดใช่ไหมคะ
ผมไม่เคยขายยาครับแต่ว่าเป็นเด็กที่ติดยาเสพติดฮะเราไม่มีเงินไปซื้อยาจนคดีสุดท้ายเนี่ยผมทำคดีชิงทรัพย์
ทำไมถึงโดนคดียาเสพติดอะคะ
มันเป็นสภาพแวดล้อมที่หนูอยู่อะคือแถวนั้นขายยาหมดความที่เป็นเด็กอะค่ะแต่เราอะไม่รู้หรอกว่าสิ่งที่เราทำนะมันถูกหรือมันผิดคือทุกอย่างภาระในบ้านทั้งหมดอยู่ที่เราหมด
เลย
ให้น้าสาวให้พี่ชายแล้วก็เลี้ยงน้องแล้วก็พี่ที่สติไม่ดี
ช่วงวัยรุ่นนะครับก็ไปเก็บเงินค่ารถมอเตอร์ไซค์คิวนะครับที่วิ่งอยู่ในพื้นที่ที่ผมดูแลอยู่นะครับพอสักพักก็มีนโยบายออกมาใช่ไหมครับคุณใบเฟิร์นก็เก็บต่อทั้งที่เขาห้ามเก็บ
แม่ผมเสียตั้งแต่เด็กพอเสียเสร็จแล้วคุณพ่อผมเนี่ยแบบเขาเรียกว่าอะไรดูแลไม่ได้ทั่วถึงผมก็เลยจะคบกับเพื่อนกลุ่มที่มันดื้อๆมันก็เลยนำพาจนไปติดยา
เสพด้วยไหม
ไม่ค่ะ
ไม่ได้เสพเลย
ไม่ค่ะตอนนี้เป็นเด็กๆเขาบอกว่าหนูเอานี่ไปให้พี่คนนั้นหน่อยเดี๋ยวนะให้ตั้งกินขนมอะไรแบบนี้
แต่จริงๆแล้วเนี่ยพอมองย้อนไปเนี่ยผมผิดเต็มผิดตั้งแต่ก่อนที่กฎหมายตัวนี้ออกมาแล้วรักเงินมากกว่ารักเพื่อนมนุษย์ตอนนั้นนะที่จะเอาเปรียบเขาอย่างเดียวเลยตอนนั้นนะ
ผมเนี่ยเข้าออกสถานพินิจแล้วก็เรือนจำเนี่ยหลายครั้งก็มันเป็นด้วยเหตุนี้แหละเวลาเราออกมาเสร็จแล้วเนี่ยเมื่อพอเราไม่ได้รับการยอมรับของสังคมปุ๊บเนี่ยเราไม่รู้จะไปทางไหนเราก็เลิกกลับไปคบเพื่อนกลุ่มเดิม
ผมคิดว่าผมออกมาจากคุกเนี่ยผมไม่อยากจะทำร้ายใครอีกแล้ว
พอหนูมาเจอพี่ตอนนี้ได้คุยกับพี่ตอนนี้ความคิดหนูเปลี่ยนเลยหนูรู้สึกดีมาก
ผมไม่อยากกลับไปเป็นคนไม่ดีแล้วถึงกล้าเอาตัวเองเข้ามาขอการสมัครงานทำเนี่ยอยากจะให้โอกาสผมรับผมทำงานเพื่อผมจะได้มีชีวิตใหม่จริงๆอยู่ในสังคมได้
ก็ถ้าเป็นแพทย์ก็น่าจะให้โอกาส
หนูมีงานทำหนูเอาเงินที่หาได้เดือนแรกเอาให้แม่หนูมีความรู้สึกว่าหนูภูมิใจมากมันความรู้สึกมันต่างกับตอนที่เราขายยาแล้วเอาเงินให้แม่หนูอยากมีโอกาสให้ได้กลับตัวสร้างอนาคตที่แบบว่ามันมั่นคงแล้วเราสามารถใช้ชีวิตอยู่กับสังคมได้ โดยที่ใครดูถูกเราไม่ได้เลยว่าเราเคยติดคุก
ขอกอดทีหนึ่งสู้ๆนะขอบคุณค่ะ
ทุกคนเริ่มต้นใหม่เริ่มต้นชีวิตใหม่ได้นะครับไม่ใช่ว่าการพลาดครั้งนั้นเนี่ยทำให้เขาเนี่ยล้มเหลวไปทั้งชีวิตแล้วนะครับทุกคนคิดว่าเรื่องนี้มันยากนะครับในการที่จะรับเขาเข้ามาลองทลายกำแพงที่มันกั้นตัวนี้ออกไปก่อนนะครับต้องลองเปิดใจดูลองให้โอกาสเขาดูสิ่งที่เขาต้องการคือกำลังใจในการที่จะเริ่มต้นใหม่
We launched this video 2 weeks ago. Thank you. And I'm happy that to have some of the role participants who has, been contribute to this video as well. And we launched this video 2 weeks ago, and we received now over 500,000 views all over the countries. And we hope that something small like this can get people to stop and think that, where does the fear come from? Is that from our own bias or interpretations of what, the people are in prison, because of misunderstanding. So in this video, there was no actors. So it was all real situation. And you can see that the perception can be changed by listening. And that is the only thing that we ask from the public. And to sum up my talk, I think when we talk about social reintegration, giving people a chance to start a new life after release, it has to be framed outside of the context of the criminal justice system, because it's not just about the criminal justice agency. This issue belongs to all of us and all the people inside the communities. And the useful framework to look at this is maybe from the point of view of the human development concept, the concept that UNDP has long tried to promote. Look at the way in which we can unleash the full potentials of people, to have them be able to gain access and choices in their life. And since the SDG was launched in 2015, Goal 16 actually gives us a framework, a bigger framework, which is aimed to promote peaceful and inclusive society for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective and accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. So it's recognized importance of the rule of law and sustainable development. But what's more important about this Goal 16 is that the issues about access to justice has its own place alongside with hunger, poverty, education, employment. It's not a standalone issue anymore. And as I mentioned earlier, that people come to prison for different reasons. It could be a personal issue, social issue, economic issue. That's why the implications of Goal 16 means that the use of imprisonment should be seen within the framework of human development structure as provided by SDG. And lastly, I think since most prisoners are socially and economically marginalized before coming to prison, and that will also be likely to continue after their release. So prison can be more than just a place of detention. With collaborations between prison and all of us, we all have a role to play. You can come up with innovative ideas and initiatives that can help prisoners better reintegrate back into society. And in this sense, prison, as well as all of us, can play an important role in reshaping, and create a space for those who make mistakes in their life to learn, to grow, and to heal. And I believe that this is the way to ensure that people who are locked away are not left behind. Thank you.
Thank you